What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Young Justice Outsiders, the mid-season finale. This time, it's not 3 episodes, it is 4. Episodes 10, titled Exceptional Human Beings, Episode 11, titled Another Freak, Episode 12, titled Nightmare Monkeys, and the mid-season finale, Episode 13, titled True Heroes. In this video, I will review each episode separately, and then give a review of all 4 episodes combined at the end, and I think this week had a better linear storyline for all 4 episodes than any week before it, so I probably will have maybe a minute, maybe 2 minute review of the entire thing combined. It won't be that long, just because the video will already be very long at that point. It's 4 different episodes that I will review in one video, so with that in mind, let's start with episode 10, titled Exceptional Human Beings. So this episode was mostly about Batman and his team, consisting of Metamorpho and Katana, as well as Oracle in the background, which Metamorpho and Katana were on a lot of the promotional material of this season, and they are very prominent members of the Outsiders in the comics, so it's weird that this is the only episode they've appeared in, 13 episodes into the 26-long episode season. They might have bigger roles in the second half of the season, we will see, but they are going to Santa Prisca because Cheshire told the team, as well as Artemis, or mainly Artemis by extension, the team, that they're holding Tara Markov there on Santa Prisca, and that's where the Shadows operate out of. So that led into this episode where they went there, and I love this whole covert operation. This is like something I said in a previous episode review. They did a covert operation, and I don't think they handled it very well. I don't remember which episode it was, but I think this is how they really do it. Like all the sneaky noises and how they just sneak in with Batman, Metamorpho, and Katana, using their specific abilities and powers to do that. Because Season 1 and 2 just did such an incredible job with the covert operations for the most part, while this season hasn't really gotten to it, and when it did, it wasn't as good as usual, so it was awesome to see this covert operation that was as good as usual with Batman, Metamorpho, and Katana. Now, obviously, it wasn't covert the entire time. They did get into a fight with Deathstroke, Lady Shiva, and Bane at the end, and I'm obviously going to get to that, but in terms of the covert operation, I thought that was handled incredibly well. Throughout all of that, we got some things we learned about the League of Shadows. Specifically, like I said, Deathstroke is the head of the Shadows. I predicted that just based off the fact that Tara is working with the Shadows now, and Deathstroke would just be my obvious pick for being the League of Shadows head at the point of episode 6, I think it was when I guessed that. So now that it is confirmed in episode 10, that is pretty awesome. Lady Shiva is also kind of the head of the League of Shadows, but she's she called herself the Sensei, so obviously that is awesome. Now, Deathstroke being the head of the League of Shadows leads into something in episode 13 that I will talk about once I get to that review. So like I said, the covert operation for Batman, Katana, and Metamorpho was not covert the entire time. In the end, Batman was confronted by Bane when Batman was leaving Santa Prisca, and then that led Deathstroke and Lady Shiva to fighting Katana and Metamorpho. So when Batman met Bane, he just burned him so hard, and if you watch the episode, you know what I'm talking about, and the subsequent fight was a pretty good fight. The fight between Katana and Metamorpho versus Deathstroke and Lady Shiva was also pretty good. I don't think any of it was amazing or anything, but it was pretty cool seeing all their powers and abilities fighting against Bane, Deathstroke, and Lady Shiva's powers and abilities, and it was also pretty awesome seeing Deathstroke really go all out in the show. He's never really done that before. He's always really stayed back and just stood there for the most part, but here we see him in a fight scene, and it is cool to see. Obviously, he will have a huge role in the second half of the season, considering the ending of episode 13, so we will get a lot more of Deathstroke, but this whole fight scene was pretty great. It wasn't amazing or anything, like I said, but it was still a pretty great fight scene. Outside of Batman's storyline, we did get actually a lot of things in this episode. There was the whole storyline with the Outsiders training with Nightwing, which was mostly more of the same. It was just them training together, trying to learn how to fight together, and basically just tag Nightwing in this particular situation, and obviously Geoforce gets angry like he always does, and I don't think there was anything new about the storyline, and it did serve to set up the rest of the 3 episodes with them looking for Tara Markov for the most part, but I think that the Batman storyline did that as well. The whole 4 episodes was mainly focused around that, as well as Cyborg and some other stuff, but so this storyline didn't really matter. I'm not complaining about it. It was just there, and I didn't mind it, but I don't think it added anything new to the episode. But speaking of Cyborg, he was introduced in this episode, or at least Victor Stone was. So Victor was introduced in this episode, and I gotta say, it is insane how this show works in general, because Victor was referenced in episode 9, I'm pretty sure, and then in the next episode he appears. It might have been episode 7, 8, or 9, I'm not really sure which one, but it was one of those episodes. I'm pretty sure it was 7, but anyway, just a couple episodes later, he appears. I'm just so used to like characters being referenced in, say, the Arrowverse shows, and then either never appearing or just appearing in a couple seasons, or like something like that. So I'm very not used to this, where a character is referenced and then a couple episodes later he appears like a major character like Cyborg. But in the beginning, we see a scene where Cyborg is in this locker room where these other two people are talking about what they will do if they become metahumans. In this scene, we get Cisco, who is probably Cisco Ramon, which it's just insane how this show just keeps just introducing these character after character after character that we've never seen before, and just doing it. I love the fact that this show is just not limited by anything. It's so frustrating how the Arrowverse, again, another comparison to the Arrowverse, is limited by the DC universe. It doesn't really have access to everything, but Young Justice does. So we could just have all these characters appear here or there, and it's always so insane to watch because there's just a huge new character appearing every other episode. Here, Cisco Ramon appeared for the first time, and we'll probably get more of him in the future of the show. Maybe not this season, probably not, although going by this season, how it's working so far, it's possible that he will fully become Vibe by episode 14, but I think it will be cool to see him become Vibe in season 4. But in terms of the beginning of Cyborg's whole origin story, I thought it was actually pretty great. I think it did a good job of making me care about Victor Stone and his subsequent blowing up in episode 11. I don't think the other 3 episodes did as good a job at creating Cyborg as a character, but this episode definitely did a pretty good job at creating Victor Stone as a character. But other things that happened in this episode is Violet getting her name, which I loved how they did that, because Violet in the comics is Violet Harper, while here she just so happens to be living with Will Harper, or Roy Harper, whatever you want to call it. So I loved how they just gave her the name Harper. Other things are Roy Harper himself talking to Jade Wen in this episode, which I do like that whole drama in this season. I don't think it's over after this episode, even though Jade says that it is kind of over. I don't think it is. She will probably come back. I hope she does. I hope this whole thing has a happy ending in the end, but for now, it is pretty good. So, in conclusion, episode 10 had a pretty great Batman-related storyline. Cyborg's beginning of his origin story was pretty good. There were some other things that weren't incredible or anything, but there was nothing absolutely bad about this episode, and I did really enjoy most of it, and I really did like a lot of it, so I will give this episode a 9.4 out of 10. Next up is episode 11, titled Another Freak. This episode follows up episode 10 with Victor Stone's whole storyline. The episode begins with a confrontation between Victor and his father, which wasn't incredible or anything. I think the voice actor really did a little bit too much, like he was screaming too much, and that was kind of a problem with Victor Stone's character in this whole thing. He was always angry instead of just freaking out about being a cyborg. In this episode 12 and episode 13, he was just angry at his father. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's reasonable. Obviously, realism in this universe isn't real, but this universe, just going by the rules of the universe, which is just a regular universe with aliens and magic and things like that, human beings act basically the same. I don't think Victor's reaction to being blown up and then being created a cyborg made any sense. He was just angry at his father instead of just freaking out about being a cyborg. But I do think the scene where he actually blew up was an insane scene. Like he made that thing detach from the other thing, the thing that blew up. I don't know what it was, but it was something that blew up, and then he just said "Dad," and then blew up. That was a very insane, intense, and pretty sad scene all together. Then Victor did become cyborg, and his design is another thing I don't love. I don't love his design. I think he's not enough robot. He's too much human. Usually Cyborg is mostly robot, while a little bit of human, making him a cyborg. Here, he's mostly human with a little bit of robot, making him a cyborg, but his design is just not as good, in my opinion. They probably did this just because they didn't want people to compare the designs of Cyborg here with Cyborg in the Doom Patrol, because honestly, they made him kind of look like how he's going to look in the Doom Patrol, with not a lot of armor and wearing a hoodie the entire time. I don't love that. I don't love this Cyborg's design. I'm hoping it kind of gets an upgrade, like maybe the Father Box maybe takes control of more of his body and he becomes more robotic and less human. That's a weird thing to say, but I don't think this Cyborg looks that much like a cyborg or like Cyborg himself, Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, so I don't love his design. I also don't love how Cyborg just became Cyborg in these couple episodes. That's one thing. That's probably the one thing I don't like about these 4 episodes. Cyborg became Cyborg, and then he just was Cyborg. It's not like he reacted to it that much. He was just angry instead of freaking out, which I don't really like how they did that, because if you became a cyborg, like if you blew up and then your father saved you from being a cyborg, you would not be angry at your father. You would be freaking out because you are a cyborg now. You're not a human being anymore. So that's one thing I didn't love about these episodes. Victor reacting to being a cyborg and his whole arc becoming cyborg and his design as cyborg. There was also Halo and Forager, or Violet Harper and Fred Bug, going to high school, in which up front, this is easily the worst episode out of the 4. I didn't love this storyline either, Halo and Forager going to high school. Forager himself was pretty annoying in this episode, constantly saying Fred Bug with 2 G's. Like, I get it, that's his shtick, but I do not like his shtick, and I really hope he stops doing that. I just find him annoying for the most part. Both of them going to high school and being labeled freaks wasn't really handled well either. I mean, they're called freaks once, and they just never show it again, and they just have to sit on the outside. I don't know. I don't love this episode. This is the one episode, again, I don't love. I do like the connection between Halo feeling sick and then having to boom tube to Cyborg to help him out. I did like that. For the most part, I did like the connection of these two storylines and the ending of both of their storylines. For the most part, though, the actual storylines were not great or anything. We did get the introduction of a character named Harper Row, who in the comics is a very new character named Bluebird, who is a Batman sidekick kind of character in Gotham City. We'll see if that leads anywhere, but I do like the introduction for the most part. There's also Dick confronting Brion about looking at his phone and looking up things about his country and how that is why he's always angry or something like that, and I did like that for the most part. So in conclusion, episode 11 is easily the worst out of the 4. It does have a good beginning with the blowing up of Victor Stone, but Victor actually becoming Cyborg isn't really that compelling, and Halo as well as Forager going to high school is not really that entertaining. The two storylines do meet up in a pretty great way, but other than that, there's not really much awesome in this episode. So even though this is the worst episode of the 4, it was still a pretty good episode, which is a testament to how good this show is. So I will give this episode an 8.7 out of 10. But continuing the Teen Titans trend of this whole 4 episodes, after Cyborg, we have an episode that mainly focuses around Beast Boy in episode 12, titled Nightmare Monkeys. It doesn't start with Beast Boy, however. It starts with a whole storyline with the Outsiders figuring out who Halo is. Turns out she is a living mother box, or she is a mother box in a human body, which was the leading theory from the fan base in this season. She is a mother box, and I guess the fan base was correct. I did like how they put all this together, like how that led from episode 11 to this episode. Again, I didn't love episode 11, but it did serve to set up most of episode 12 and 13, which I did think it did a pretty good job at that, at least. But I did like how the team figured out that she is a mother box. The confrontation between Cyborg and the Super Psycho was pretty good as well, leading also into episode 13, where Cyborg is going insane with his purple mode, or his father box mode, which I will get into in episode 13 as well. But obviously, getting to the Beast Boy part of the episode, this whole thing was insane. Beast Boy puts on the good goggles, and we learn that the good goggles are there to put something in a metahuman's brain to lead them to go somewhere, so that the people, the Granny Goodness and the Light, probably can use them as these meta-teens we've been seeing this season. Somebody in the comments a couple of reviews ago, said that the good goggles will probably be coming back as some sort of device that the Light or somebody will be using to take control of people, and they were obviously right. Now we learned what they're for. They're for, like I said, taking control of metahumans and bringing them to a location that they will take control of these meta-teens. But this whole storyline with Beast Boy's trek through the good goggles, if you want to call it that, considering he stars in Space Trek, that makes a lot of sense to call it that, but this was all insane. So the main part of this storyline is obviously Beast Boy coming to grips with all the people he loves dying, and I don't know if I'm interpreting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is trying to convey that he has survivor's guilt. I mean, he has a whole thing where Kid Flash, Robin, Aquagirl, and Blue Beetle are all there. He is clearly dealing with the fact that they're all dead, as well as Queen Bee murdering his mother, and we learned that he stayed with the Doom Patrol for a little bit with Rita Farr, who, by the way, I remember back in Season 1 when we saw Hello Megan for the first time, I saw Rita Farr, and that was a great Easter egg, but now they're actually using that Easter egg in this episode, and that is insane. Turns out she was a member of the Doom Patrol along with Robot Man, Negative Woman, apparently, and I'm pretty sure they changed Negative Man to Negative Woman just to use Raven from Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go's name, because they only have one girl on the team, and Teen Titans has two. I'll get to that in a second, but there's also the Chief and Mento, and they all died except for Mento and Beast Boy, and this is more about Beast Boy's survivor's guilt and learning to cope with all of their deaths. And I think this episode did an incredible job at conveying that and just doing all of that. It was a pretty insane episode. We obviously also got Doom Patrol Go, which was just hilarious. I mean, it was just so funny seeing that. That's obviously a parody of Teen Titans Go, with instead of Teen Titans, you have the Doom Patrol. They even brought back the exact same cast of Teen Titans, which is, all of them are just incredible in their roles, even in Teen Titans Go, but mainly, obviously, in Teen Titans. You had Robin's voice actor as the Chief, you had Cyborg's voice actor as Robot Man, you had Raven's voice actress as Negative Woman, you had Starfire's voice actress as Elastigirl, and you had Beast Boy's voice actor as Beast Boy, and then Mento was voiced by somebody else that we don't know about. But anyway, I thought that was just insane. All just Beast Boy going from channel to channel, from Space Trek to Doom Patrol Go to Hello Megan. It was just insane to watch. I loved, and I really liked how they put it all together, showing Beast Boy really dealing with all the people he loves dying, and then coming to this conclusion in the end that he really needs to get past it. But there's also the Monkey God in this episode, which was voiced by Wally West's actor for the most part, which is mentioned in this episode. Now, apparently that's where Beast Boy got his powers from. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it makes sense. I mean, how else would the good goggles have been corrupted except for the monkey that we saw earlier? So maybe he does get his powers from the Monkey God. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I always wondered why he's green, even though Miss Martian's white. Why would he become green? Maybe it's just because that Miss Martian's transfusion gave him the ability to think that he would change, so that the Monkey God, who already chose him, would make him green and Beast Boy. I honestly don't know about all of this. I'm hoping it's explained a little bit more, but I think that is pretty insane as well. All in all, I just love this whole storyline with Beast Boy's trek through the good goggles and all these channels like Space Trek, Doom Patrol Go, Hello Megan, and so on and so forth. I loved it, and I basically really loved this episode as well. There's also at the end of the episode with Halo and Brion just kissed. Not really out of nowhere, but there wasn't really much setup in this episode, but there was a lot of setup in the first 11 episodes of the season, and I like that. I do like them together as well. But in conclusion, this episode had a pretty incredible storyline, with Beast Boy really giving him some greatly needed development and making him a much better character than he was previously in this season. It also explored everything it was trying to explore incredibly well. It was a lot of fun as well, really funny. I loved the parody of Teen Titans Go. There was also the revelation to the team that Halo is a living mother box, that I think was handled very well in this episode. In the end, I loved this episode, and I will give it a 9.6 out of 10. So after an episode focuses around Cyborg, an episode focuses around Beast Boy, and brings back the Teen Titans / Teen Titans Go cast, and even parodies Teen Titans Go, we are not done with all of the Teen Titans. Episode 13 is titled True Heroes, and it focuses mainly around the Outsiders going and rescuing Terra, who is obviously a main member of the Teen Titans. She's always the member that joins along with the other five, but after the other five, and turns out she's always working with Deathstroke, which is mentioned, or is actually referenced, in the end of the episode, which I will get to in the end of this review. But the Outsiders go and rescue Terra, which we just get so many things from this whole storyline. We saw the Court of Owls for the first time, which it's insane how this show just has these characters and how it has these concepts and these groups just put in their universe without any setup whatsoever, because, like, again, in the Arrowverse, that would not happen. If the Court of Owls showed up in the Arrowverse, it would be a lot of news saying, oh, the Court of Owls are going to show up, especially like it probably would be in Batwoman. Here, now, the Court of Owls just show up out of nowhere. I don't think we've ever seen them before. It is honestly insane. I'm hoping they have a storyline as well, because I loved them in their first comic book in 2011. But the whole fight scene between the Outsiders and the people who are keeping all of these meta-humans, this whole fight scene it really felt like a Marvel movie fight scene, which if you like Marvel movies, you love it, and if you don't like Marvel movies, which most people do, you probably didn't like this. Some people just have a problem with the quips in Marvel movie fight scenes, which I do understand. It kind of takes away from the epicness at times, but it also makes it so entertaining as well. This whole fight scene at the end had so many quips and jokes. It was just such an entertaining fight scene. There was a whole conversation between Icicle Jr. and Superboy, which I always loved the dynamic between those two. They always felt like they would be rivals in the show because of what happened in Season 1, which is very mentioned, and we have this whole really funny conversation with Superboy saying that he and Miss Martian are now engaged, and Icicle reacting to that. It's It's just really, really funny. We got some more quips, some more fight scenes, and I loved this whole fight scene at the end. It was super entertaining. It wasn't really epic like it would have probably been if it didn't have all those clips, and a mid-season finale fight scene probably should be, so that's not one thing I love, but it was still very, very entertaining, and it just made the whole episode flow so incredibly well, ending with the Outsiders rescuing Tara as well as the other Meta-Teens. Before I get to that, Cyborg attacking Helga and Violet was also a storyline in this episode, and they kind of try to mix it up a little bit. This whole storyline was more of a horror movie than the rest of the season was, and honestly, it did a pretty good job at that, like with this Terminator-like guy hunting down a girl in this episode. I think that was handled very well, even though Halo was not in danger at all, considering she's never in danger, so most of the time, I don't care if she gets hurt or not, but here, I do think the episode did a pretty good job at making her feel like she is in danger. In the end, she cleanses Cyborg of the Father Box's control, which I don't mind that. I didn't really like Cyborg's being taken control of by the Father Box, so I'm glad that that is over from now on. But this whole storyline was also pretty good in this episode. And if we haven't had enough Teen Titans, the episode ended with a Teen Titans storyline being brought up, which is the Judas Contract. They've even made a movie about it, the Teen Titans, the Judas Contract movie, which was a pretty good movie in my opinion. It started a little slow, but once Slade started showing up, it was really, really good. Hopefully this season does it even better, which I have absolutely no doubt that it will. Tara is working with the Deathstroke, and that is obviously the Judas Contract. That was an insane ending to this episode, an insane ending to the first part of the season, and an insane ending to the mid-season finale leading up to the second part of the season. I don't know when that's coming out, but it will definitely be really, really good. So with all that in mind, I will give this episode a 9.7 out of 10. So that's my review for all 4 episodes separately, but what about all of them combined? So while I did love episode 1, 12, and 13, and I kind of liked episode 11, I do think that they are even better combined. Like just watching it straight, instead of watching one and then taking a break maybe and then just watching another, it works as an hour and 20 minute long movie. It works so incredibly well. All 4 episodes, they start with introducing Cyborg. In the end, it has a lot of Cyborg as well, and it kind of concludes his whole arc in these 4 episodes. The beginning of the episode, of the hour and 20 long minute episode, it starts with Batman looking for Tara on Santa Prisca along with the League of Shadows, and ends with them rescuing Tara, and she is actually working with the League of Shadows. There's so many other things that just start in episode 10 and end in episode 13, and I just loved all of that. Like there's the good goggles connection, which in episode 12 they learn that the good goggles are connected to Granted Goodness and the Light, and that leads into episode 13. I think that episode 10, 11, and 12 just did such an incredible job at being good episodes on their own, especially episode 10 and 12, but also setting up episode 13, which is the ending of the first part of the season, and I just loved how that all worked. So in the end, I do think that this was an incredible hour and 20 minute long movie, if you want to call it that, and in my opinion, easily the best week of Young Justice Outsiders so far. So I will give this week a 9.8 out of 10. So anyway, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as in the 4 different polls in the top right corner of the video. If you want to tell me your thoughts about all 4 episodes combined, then you gotta tell me in the comments. If you want to see more reviews for Young Justice, specifically the first 9 episodes with 3 different videos, there will be a link in the top right corner of the video to a playlist to all my reviews of Young Justice Outsiders. So as always, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.